Okay, so good evening, everyone. For the want of anybody new, which I think we're all familiar with one another. My name still remains Moji. And tonight we'll be looking at capacity planning. And so before we start, I'd just like to note some few rules. Please, let's stay muted during the session because it's being recorded. Let's keep our cameras off to avoid distractions. And then opportunities for clarification will be provided at the end of the session. So please just note your questions, or you can put them in the chat and I'll pick them up later on after the session if that's okay with everyone. Okay. All right. So like I said, we're looking at capacity planning. And over the course of this evening, we'll just look at what it means. We'll have an understanding of capacity planning. We'll look at how you collect your data to do that, to plan your capacity. What are the benefits? Why do we need to do it? What do we gain from doing it? We'll look at some factors that affect it. And then we'll look at the calculations and then the location of your capacity on your project board. So these are the few things we will try and cover, okay, tonight. So capacity itself, in simple terms, is just the maximum amount or the limit that something can hold, or can contain or can produce. If you look at the bottles on the images that are on the screen, what the 1 liter bottle can take, a 2 liter will take that and more. But the 1 liter can't take what the 2 liter can take. It will definitely remain. So we're just talking about what is the maximum, that a particular thing can hold or can contain or can produce. That is what capacity is in lay terms. And I did that because it will be able to help us when we talk about capacity in Agile or in Scrum. What does that mean, to us? So it just refers to the total amount of work that a team can handle within a particular sprint. So you have sprint one. What is the capacity of your team members? What is the amount of work that can be done? The process of determining the amount of work that a team can accomplish also in future sprints. By the time you start calculating capacity, it helps you now to have a process in place and be able to say, okay, if we have full term, we're able to do maybe 10, work items and everything, although we need to put into consideration that complexity at times can limit that, but at least it gives you a rough idea once you start planning your team's capacity. And what that helps to do, is it helps to determine and helps you to analyze things. So in a situation where maybe during the sprint, the product owner decides to bring something in, you don't just take it in and start working on it, because you're looking at your capacity to say, do we have the capacity? Are we able to accommodate this work that is coming? How big it is? Are we able to accommodate it? Is there any member of the team that has finished what they need to do and they still have capacity, they have room to take more? So you need to plan your capacity because it helps you, it's part of your sprint planning. It doesn't happen on your sprint planning day because it happens previously, but whatsoever planning you do for your capacity, whatsoever figure you get, helps you to do your sprint planning properly. Okay, and then know the number of work to commit to and have a better plan in place. So that's what your capacity. I'm just going to use this a brief story of the owner of a bakery, the workers, and then the produce and all that to explain to us. So let's assume there's a bakery that produces, pastry and everything and all that, and then you have one trolley produces 20 pastry, with 10 staff. So that means one person's output is 2 trolleys. Okay. So if he has 10 staffs and one person produces 2 trolleys, another, you're looking at 20 trolleys, isn't it? So that is what that bakery produces a day. Okay. So that's what they produce a day. And the bakery delivers to 10 stores. So that means an average of 2 trolleys go per store or thereabouts, depending on the how big the stores are. So we're just using that as an example. If they are making 20 trolleys of pastries and they have 10 stores to, kind of distribute to, that means two trolleys per stores. Okay, so let's give a scenario where two staff members, they didn't turn up to work. We know without prior notice, they didn't come to work and all that. You know that the daily output for that day is going to be affected somehow. So instead of the 20, definitely it's going to be 16, because you have two people that are not coming in. And if one person is bringing out two trolleys, that means four trolleys are going to be missing. Okay, so two stores will be impacted, with not having pastries or prior notice that you're not going to get pastries and all that. But with capacity planning, the bakery has the opportunity of informing their customers that, oh, you're going to get maybe a less quantity, or they can hire temporary staff in order to still achieve the 20 trolleys that they provide. So you can see how planning the capacity helps the team, to plan prior to anything happening. So when we look at the capacity and we know that, oh, so number of the team are not going to be around and things like that, and we've been able to plan well, let's assume that maybe half of the team are not going to be available. And in the last sprint, we had full capacity where all the team members are there and things like that and everything. And the product owner is coming thinking, oh, last sprint, you people did completed 10 stories. So I'm bringing 10 stories for you to complete this time around. As a scrum master, you're able to negotiate to say that, oh, sorry, this sprint, we don't have full capacity. We have about 50% capacity. That means we're not going to be able to do the 10 stories because half of the team are not around. And then you negotiate and say, can you just let us know the most prioritized work that needs to be done out of that 10? That is what we'll be able to do. And definitely, is reasonable what you've brought up. I don't see a product owner saying, oh no, even if you don't have your full capacity, I still want you to do all those tens and everything. That's what the negotiation comes in. And that's because you've known the capacity for your team prior to your sprint planning, and you're able to use the information you have, you understand, to negotiate that for the team so that they are not overwhelmed with work. The same way, if you have full capacity and the product owner is bringing in maybe less work and all that, we'll be able to say, oh, we have full capacity. If there's still something else goal you want to add to the sprint, I think we'll be able to accommodate it because the team is in full capacity and all that and everything. You're able to do that. So that's roughly, in a simple way, best way to explain what capacity means to a team and why, you planning it ahead of time, what it helps you, the value and the value it added to what you're doing as your role as a scrum master or an APM in the team that you're working on. So for an APM, if you're the main person in the team, you don't have a scrum master, then you'll be the one doing the capacity planning. If you have a scrum master, it's mainly for you to check to say that has everything been done prior to us having the sprint planning. Have you done the team's capacity? What's the capacity for this sprint and everything, to ensure that that is in place. And also as an APM is Agile Project Manager. Remember, you are the resource person. So you're the person doing the resourcing and all that. I said earlier on that for the case of the bakery, if the owner of the bakery, I don't know what they call them. I'm sure he's not chef, but if there's a baker also, knows on time that, oh, I still need that 20 trolley output because maybe there's a critical thing that needs to be done and everything and all that, he will go hiring, isn't it? He will go get a temporary staff, to cover the two people that are not there. So in a situation where maybe you have a release coming also, you need those people to be there and everything, you can go resource borrowing. You can go to another team and get somebody that knows about your project. Maybe they've been moved to another team, but they've worked on that project before, they understand the system, and you be able to talk to maybe if there is another APM in that team, or you might be the APM managing both teams, and then you notice that other team where you're borrowing resource from have less work to do, or they are not at that critical release point and all that, you'll be able to do your resourcing properly. Okay, so that's part of why you might not be the one doing the workout of the capacity, but by the time you know from the scrum master to say, do we have the capacity we need and everything, because you're the one that anything is being escalated to, you would know why you needed, to have that knowledge ahead of time so that you can use that, to do your own resourcing properly. Okay, so that's that. So just using the bakery one to explain to us. So now I said earlier on that we need to have some understanding about capacity planning. So a team's capacity is based on the team's productive hours. I'll explain to us later on when we start showing the chart what we mean by productive hours. Okay, so it's based on the team's productive hours, not their productive hours, the time that they are available, the time that they are actually, carrying out the work. For the developer, the time he's coding and building what he needs to build. For the QAs, the time they are actually testing what they need to test. That's what the capacity is based on. And like I said, we'll see it later on when we go ahead. And then the capacity is planned based on the team members' availability. So you don't plan capacity based on, for example, if A is working 10 days, if sprint is 2 weeks, so that's 10 days, and then the person has told you, oh, I'm taking 2 days off. You can't plan them with 10 days. You can only plan them with 8 days, because that is the time they are available to work. That is the time they would be around to work. So you can't keep planning them for, oh, well, it's 10 days in a week and all that. You're already aware that they are not going to be around. Another thing is your capacity planning is done 2 to 3 days before your sprint planning date, because you need that information, like I said, to negotiate at times work that the product owner is bringing in. You need that information to pass to the APM in case there's the need to get a borrowed or a loaned resource from another team. You would need that prior to your sprint planning. So the capacity planning is one of the things, activity you carry out as a scrum master before your sprint planning date. Apart from you setting up the board and all that, capacity planning also is one of the things that you do. And then consideration also is given to the team's member status. I talked earlier on, is that team member a full member or a borrowed resource? So if you're borrowing a resource, there is always a consensus, an agreement between your team and the team you're borrowing from. So the team you're borrowing from can tell you, oh yes, we can loan you to him, but we're just going to loan you for 30% of his time or 40% of his time in a day. So he's not coming to you and start working with you fully. So there will be some few hours. It might just be in the morning alone. That's when it comes to do what he needs to do. Or it might be in the evening, or they might say, oh, he can only do 2 days a week with you guys because he's doing other things for us, or he's doing 3 days a week with your team and then doing 2 on his team, depending. But there's always that consensus. So they won't just give you their resource, their member like that and everything. So it will be a borrowed resource. And once that is in place, when you are allocating work, you can't give that person that is coming in for 30%. You can't give them the same workload that you're giving somebody who is there 100%. So these are some of the considerations that needs to be put in place when you're planning the capacity, so that you're telling the people that are there that, oh, we have a borrowed resource where he's here for just 50%, of his time and all that, so that by the time whoever is assigning work to them, if somebody assigns work to them, a tech lead or the lead of the developers and all that, knows the workload that person needs to be given. Okay. And then capacity is an estimate. Okay. It's an estimate of a future activity. So you're planning that capacity for the sprint that is coming, the next sprint. So it has not happened yet. Okay. So it's for a sprint that is coming. So it's an estimate of a future activity. While your velocity, so this is just differentiating between capacity and velocity. Okay. But one helps the other one. So your velocity measures past activity. Your velocity measures in the last sprint. This is what your velocity is saying. So you're looking at your average velocity over a period of time. You'll be able to kind of understand by the time the team is working. Okay, so you have in sprint one, full team. And when we finished working, our velocity is saying, oh, we're at 100. Yeah. And then we're going into the next sprint, we're having a half team member working. Definitely, you're not going to work with 100 velocity. So your capacity determines the velocity. So you have a baseline velocity that will tell you, oh, for what you're doing, your average velocity is 100, because your velocity is just a reading on your dashboard. He doesn't know your capacity. Your velocity doesn't know the team's capacity. It can't pick that, oh, this person is off, this person is off. So it will give you an average velocity. Now that's where you come in as a scrum master. When your team are planning and they said, oh, our average velocity says is 100, so we need to take in 100 story points and all that. You'll be able to point out to them to say, well, the average velocity that is telling you 100 is telling you that 100 story point when we were at full capacity. Now that half of the team has taken time off, people have gone on holiday and all that, we can't do the same. Now, the velocity is not going to write itself and just say, oh, because of that, it's 50. It now comes to you, the team, saying that if at full capacity we're doing 100, then that means at half capacity we're doing half of the velocity also. So you'll be taking in 50 story points. And that's where I said earlier on, you need to negotiate with the product owner, because again, the product owner doesn't know. You just come in with stories and say, I want you to do da 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 da. But you, as the scrum master, you understand the process. You monitor the board, you done the capacity, you're looking at the average velocity. This is where you shield the team from overloading and overwhelming themselves by carrying out that negotiation with the PO, so that they reduce what needs to be done, and then the team can do what they need to do. Now, there has to be diplomacy when you're talking to the product owner. Okay, so product owner is coming representing the business or the client and saying, this is what you need to do. So after explaining to them objectively to say that, okay, so we can only do this. However, if you're not promising, if we finish on time and we still have capacity to take more, we can do that. But as it stands now, we can only take in half of what you're bringing. So can you let us know the most prioritized one that we can work on? You can put the other ones in the backlog at the top, and then we would let you know. So as the sprint goes on and you're working, if you have capacity to take in more, you can. If you have a tech lead, you can talk to your tech lead that how are things looking? Can we take? Do we have developers? Can they take in more? Even if you don't have tech lead and all that, during your stand up, you can ask them, oh, I noticed that the stories in the either the ready column or we're doing a lot. We still have maybe 3 or 4 days to the end of the sprint, and we've moved on a lot and all that. If we're not careful, it gets to a stage where guys don't have work to do. Now you call upon the product owner. No, so now we have capacity maybe to be able to take in either 2 or more and everything and all that. And if you're able to, again, if you have a tech lead or somebody a senior tech person and all that, they size up that story. So because you're 3 days to the end of the sprint, you're telling the PO, okay, we can take in more, and then you now take it, but you can't finish it at the end of the sprint. So you don't want to do that also. So it's all about negotiating. It's all about understanding. It's all about collaboration above all things. Okay. So that is why we need that. Okay. So that's why we said, while capacity is a future activity, the velocity is a past activity, or both needs to work together. You need them to work together or align together, if I can put it that way. And that's where the quote at the bottom is coming in to say that let's use this, which is capacity that we might have. Because another thing you're looking at is, I can tell you I have 10 days, all the 10 days I'll be in. What if I have an emergency? So you have to put all those buffers in. So that is why we call it is an estimate of a future activity. Is you just having an estimate. This is the estimate we're working with. So let's use this capacity that we have to achieve this work we want to do, which is your sprint goal, based on our past performance, which is your velocity. Like I said, your velocity is the past activity. Last sprint, we were able to do 100. So our velocity is saying for this team, they can finish 100. But that 100 that we need to finish is based on the availability that we have to do the work that we need to do. Okay, so having that understanding, how do you collect the data that you will need, the information you need for you to be able to work out that capacity? How do you collect it, from your team members? So how to do that would be for a team that is just starting, it could be with meeting. So you gather the team together, you brief them what it's all about, why you need to collect those information and all that, and then maybe you have a spreadsheet, where you've put all the dates on and everything, and then you're able to take what's your day off. Do you have holidays? Do you have trainings? All those information. That's the data you want to collect from them, because that's what you're going to use to calculate the capacity. For some teams that are advanced, I won't say well advanced, but they've been using it, they're used to it. You just share the Excel documents with them. It could be by the G Drive. You could be by the organization have their own cloud space and all that. You share the documents with them. You give them the right to be able to edit it. So even before you need to calculate, they know the time you normally calculate, because you would have discussed with them to say, okay, by so time, can you please ensure that you've updated this spreadsheet with your holiday time and all that. And so once they've done that, you don't need to go back to them. That's the one you just open, notice everybody's holiday, and use that to do the capacity that you need to do. And then again, there are times, like I said, you need to train the team on capacity planning to help them self-manage. Okay, so the self-manage aspect is still them putting things in Excel documents, or depending on where you want them to put the information, for you to be able to pick it and kind of work with it, so that they're self-managing to do that by themselves. So these are some of the ways you can, kind of collect that information you need, which is mainly their day off time. What did they have some trainings and things like that, which will impact work, and then you want to get that from them. Okay. So having said that, we want to look at some of the benefits of capacity planning. So like I said, these are just some, not limited to these. The capacity, you have better sprint planning, like I've explained earlier on. When you have the team's capacity, it helps the team to accurately commit to work, and then to complete the sprint. Okay, so they won't have to overcommit because they don't know their capacity, and then they won't have to undercommit. They won't have to take in less work when when they have enough availability to do much more than that. That's one of the things that capacity planning helps you to be able to do. And then you're looking at it improves the commitment reliability. So over time, team members commitment gets improved and reliable by looking at the capacity pattern. So you have somebody that that, oh, every second Friday of the sprint, B is always taking time off and things like that. And it's something, there's a pattern going across, because you've always collected the information, the data from them, and you're looking at the spreadsheet, and you know that, okay, this person normally takes time off, maybe every other month or things like that, and everything and all that. So it helps you to be able to plan properly. It helps you to have commitment to reliability also in place, because you've been doing that over a couple of times, and then you're able also to improve and ensure that the things are reliable. When you're getting it, also you have somebody telling you, oh, I'm doing this big piece of work and everything and all that, but I think I'll be going for an up, and then because of my up that I'm going for, I might not come back fully. I might be doing half day for maybe 3 weeks, half day for maybe 2 months and all that and everything. So that reliability is there for you to quickly replan yourself, reschedule things, rejuggle things and all that. That is there, and that is because you're planning the capacity. And then it helps control scope creep. So scope creep is additional work that comes into the sprint that were not initially planned. So there are times when the product owner will come in and say, oh, the client urgently needs us to do this and that. That happens mainly, especially for situations where you have an app that um, already in production, and maybe what you're doing is just enhancing things and all that, the client can come and say, oh, can they quickly do this and everything, and all those little additions that come in are called scope creep. So the scope is being increased more than what we planned initially, and capacity planning helps us to plan, to manage that, to control that, because a team is able to do that with negotiation, because they are aware of their capacity. So when the product owner is coming in and said, oh, you need to do this and everything, the question you are asking is how critical is this thing you're bringing in? If it is priority, it takes priority even over what we're working on. And then there's a negotiation to say, okay, the effort is going to take us to do this new one you're bringing in. Let's assume the effort is 5. Can we also take out low priority work that is 5 so that we can accommodate this one? So what you're doing is using the new one, using the previous one low priority being removed to bring in the new one, because it's still based on capacity. We can't increase our capacity. Our capacity is capacity and is limited. Look at those bottles that I showed earlier on. The 1 liter can only take 1 liter. If you pour anything else after it is full, it's just be pouring away. It's not going to increase whatever is in there by you just adding on to it. It is just going to take 1 liter. It's not going. There's no way it's going to expand or anything. So it helps to control that. And then the last one is better allocation of tasks. Like I said earlier on, that because people's capacity, you're better suited to allocating work appropriately for them. An example is if somebody, okay, we have a 2-week sprint, B is going to be off the whole of next week. There is a particular big story that maybe is going to take 10 days to do it. You're not going to give it to somebody that is going to stay in the sprint for 5 days, because that they're not going to be in, the rest of the sprint. Okay, so somebody else can pick it up and work on it, but it will be better that the person that started it is able to also complete it. Because another thing you're looking at is somebody can have 10 days capacity from onset, and you give them work that the effort is going to take 10 days to do or thereabout and all that, and then they have an emergency. Okay, so that's still work, but better allocation of work. Like I said, if we have a borrowed resource, we're not going to give a borrowed resource the same amount of work that somebody with full capacity will be able to do. So it helps us to allocate work properly, based on the availability that we know that people have. So these are just some of the benefits that you can, get from making use of it. Now, there are some factors that affect your planning, okay? And these are the factors that we're going to use to do the practical aspect, which we'll get to in a bit. I just want to explain what they are so that by the time we're seeing them in the chart later on or in the calculations later on, we have an understanding of what it means. So some of the factors, the first one is the default distribution. So the default distribution is just the standard hours that a person is expected to work as an employee in an organization. So when you resume work 9 a.m. and you finish by 5 a.m., that makes a total of 8 hours. So if you remove maybe your 1 hour break and all that, that makes a total of 7 hours, isn't it? And then you're doing 7 hours or thereabout for 10 days. That is maybe 70 hours that you're doing. So that is your default distribution. Okay, it doesn't change. That is what you've been employed to do. That's the normal time you've been employed, to do in the organization. So you're looking at the Scrum event. So your Scrum event involves meetings like your sprint planning, your daily stand up, your review meeting, you're looking at your retrospective meetings. So those hours that you use to do that, when you're doing all those meetings, you are not actively coding or testing, as an engineer. So all those hours also are some of the things that affect, or the factors that affect your capacity planning. You have other meetings. Other meetings could be other meetings apart from your Scrum meeting. So it could be training, it could be ad hoc meeting, it could be three amigo sessions that you have, it could be any other meeting that you have, but that are outside your Scrum event meeting. So those are the ones that are termed as your your other meetings, okay? And then we have the team holiday. So the team holiday is looking at the general bank holiday. Everybody has that holiday. Ramadan is coming. The holidays, no, okay, so Ramadan is not for everybody, but you're looking at Christmas. Everybody gets Christmas time off. New Year, everybody gets New Year off. Easter, everybody gets that off and all that. And then even in the Ramadan we're talking about, even in Muslim-based countries, they take the holiday off also, isn't it? It's bank holiday for them in their own country. That so the bank holiday or the public holiday and all that are referred to as the team holiday because everybody has that holiday. Nobody's coming to work. And then you have the individual full day off. So A takes a full day off, is referred to as an individual day off. And then A takes a partial day off, morning off, or go afternoon off is referred to as the individual partial day off. And then you have the focus factor. Okay, so your focus factor is the team's capability to remain focused, on the spring goal without any distraction, without any meeting, without any hard hoc meeting, without any holiday and all that. And that enables the team to calculate the productivity. I said earlier on at the start that there's something called productive meeting. So your focus factor is that productive time when you are actually coding, when you're actually, developing, when the tester is actually testing that some organizations you go there and then you find on people's calendar they've blocked up some set of time. They call it focus time. You can see somebody doing that maybe between um 9 or between 10, sorry, between 10 and 12. When they go to lunch, they put it focus time. So that's their focus. That's the time they're actually working. So that time they've blocked it away from their diary. That time, because it's been blocked away from their diary, if you look at their profile, it's showing red. So you think they're in a meeting, but it's just don't disturb. That what they're trying to tell you is this is the time I'm focusing on work. So people have that. And that also definitely helps you to plan your capacity. So these are some of the factors, that affect the capacity planning. Okay, so let's see how we can put each of these in a chart that we have and then see what we come up with. Okay, so the first step in doing your capacity planning is to know your team duration. So you're picking your calendar and you're looking at, it's a 2-week sprint. So 5 days for the first week, 5 days for the second week makes 10 days. So we're looking at this time for a team that starts their sprint on a Tuesday and then they end it on a Monday. So you have all the days there. You can see the dates are there. You're looking at the days and all that. So this is the first thing you need to do. What is our team sprint duration on the calendar? This sprint we're going into, what is the duration on the calendar? So that's the first step for you to know. And then the second step would be for you to also list out your team members' roles, the team members and their roles. Now I'm going to explain something. You will look at the chart, the table that we have. There is no BA there. There is no business analyst. There is only developer and tester because these are the people that are actually carrying out work. BAs are wonderful because even the developers and the tester won't be able to do what they need to do without the requirement. But the BAs work ahead of the sprint. So if we're carrying out work for sprint one, the BA have already finished their own work for sprint one. That's why we have a story to commit to sprint. So in sprint one, the BAs are doing the work for sprint two. That's why we say they work ahead of the sprint. Now they don't code, okay? They're getting productive in their own role also. They are part of the team, but they're just what they are doing in sprint one is the work that we're going to do in sprint two. So that's why we say they work ahead of the sprint. That's number one. The DAs in some organizations are seen as developers. So you can be a DA, data analyst, and all that. You're counted as a developer. Okay. So, and then you Scrum Masters and APM, you work also, but remember, you're guiding the team through a process. So you're not coding, except if you're a technical Scrum Master, whereby you're the Scrum Master in the team, you are also a developer. Okay, if that is not the case and you're just, specifically in your role as a Scrum Master, you're helping them to, you're supporting and guiding them to use the Scrum process to be productive, to add value to what they're doing. So you won't find yourself in this capacity calculation that we're doing. So the capacity, the people we're looking at their capacity are the developers, and the testers, because remember, they are the ones that are developing, the work. It's not as if your role and the BA's role are not important, but we're just looking at the focused people that are specifically, developing and testing what needs to be done. And that's the people that you are working out their capacity. Okay. So identify them, their roles, their names and their roles. And you can see we have 7 of them here. And then you identify their allocation. So the third column is what you're looking at. And then you can see that John, James, Mary, Michael, Chris, and Gerard, they have 100% allocation. But however, Agatha has 50. Can anybody tell me why Agatha has 50? Where do you think Agatha falls into here? Anyone? If you've been following what I've been saying. So
She was
Agatha is
borrowed from another
she
team.
was borrowed. Good. Agatha was borrowed. That's why we have her as 50%. So the team that released that are saying we can only give you 50% of our allocation for this thing. And then you can see that that would affect definitely the hours she spent on your project, because you can looking at the hours per day for Agatha will be 4, while the others were 8. And then hours per sprint, which you just multiply by 10 days, would be 80 for others and 40 for Agatha. So for the whole team, you're looking at 52 hours a day, and then you're looking at 520 hours per sprint for them. Now, this is your first table, and this is just looking at the standard hours per day or per sprint. Like I said, that is the step 4 that you're looking at. Okay, so let's start seeing how those factors affect things. Okay, and this is just me writing it out, expanding what you have here, expanding it out in days over here. So remember the calendar we have, just putting things in the calendar. Okay, so 8 hours here, 8 hours here. We're still coming to the total of 52. You'll have 52, 52 here, 10 days, 10 to 52. We give you 520. That's what we're just using this to analyze out. And now this is the default distribution. This is the standard hours they've been employed and all that. This is the standard hours that Agatha has been allowed to work in this team. And this is the default distribution. The default distribution total for the whole sprint for the 7 of them is 520. Now let's see what happens to that 520 as we go on, if we start picking 1 or 2 things. So let's assume that in that 2 weeks there's a bank holiday on the 11th of June. So you can see, and that is a team holiday, remember? So that is a 0 there. So nobody's going to work on that day. So it's going to be 0 for everyone. So if we remove that one, those hours for everyone, our 520 comes down to 468. Because initially where you have 80 for everyone. Now you're having 72 because 8 hours has been removed. You're having 72. And for Agatha, it's only 4 hours that will be removed from her 40 to give 36. And when you add that together, what you have here is 468 because a 52-hour, the whole day has been taken out of the equation. So, and then if we factor in individual full day off or partial day off, you can see that that affects things further. So John, apart from the bank holiday, is working full, has full availability. Okay. James, however, has taken 2 extra days off. Has taken a day off before the bank holiday and also taken a day off after the bank holiday. So you can see that his own time is not going to be 72 anymore. Like John, who has not taken any day off, he's dropped to 56 because he's taking 2 extra days off apart from the bank holiday. And the same goes for Michael. Michael has taken half day off here. And you can see that his own time has dropped also. Mary has taken 1 day off after the bank holiday, making 2 days with the bank holiday, and that is 64. And that is how, these factors affect your team's the capacity, which you need to be aware of. Chris has also taken half day off here, which makes his own hours now 68. Gerard is another one like John that has not taken any day off apart from the bank holiday. And then Agatha also, who is a borrowed resource, has taken time off here, another 4 hours has been removed from there. So had 36 has now become 32. So from 520, we had 468 when we remove the bank holiday. Now with the individual full day off or partial day off, you're looking at 432. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's see what happens next. Okay, so like I said, okay, so this is just a duplication of that. Sorry about that. So that has been factored in. Now we want to factor in the Scrum event time. That is another factor that affects our capacity, because all those times also has to come out of the times when they've been employed. So between your 9 to 5 is when you do your meetings also. So we're looking at refinement. They always have refinement twice, maybe every Thursday. Um, yeah, every Thursday. So you can see there's 1 hour here for refinement. There's another 1 hour here for refinement. So you have that 2 hours there. You'll have your sprint planning 2 hours at the start of sprint. And then you have the daily scrum, 15 minutes every day. But remember, there won't be 15 minutes on this day because we're off. That's the bank holiday. So you have 15 minutes all through, and you're looking at 2 hours, 25 minutes. Okay. And then you have the review. The review comes up at the end of the sprint. That's another 2 hours that is out. And then you have your retro also the same day, preferably. Maybe your review is in the morning and then your retro is in the afternoon, after lunch or something like that. And that's another 1 hour being taken off. So if you look at the total hours for the Scrum event is 9.25 hours. And that needs to come into the equation. Okay, so let's see how that comes in. Okay, so we're also quickly going to look at other meeting times also. So you have Scrum coaching session. So let me go back here. So the Scrum event time is fixed. This is a fixed factor that affects the capacity planning, while the other meetings time is a varying factor, because you won't be having Scrum coaching session all the time. Okay, definitely. And then you won't be having training all the time. But in this situation where it falls into that particular sprint, it needs to be factored in. And that's why we call it a varying factor. It doesn't happen all the time like the Scrum events. So you have a Scrum coaching here, 2 hours for that here. The team has training there. Also, maybe all the developers have to go for training, or even the developers has planned, they've planned training for the developers for them to upskill, or the QAs. You have another 2 hours here. It could even be for the whole team themselves. You have another 2 hours there. So you factor another 4 hours in for other meetings. Like I said, that one can happen or might not happen. Okay, so we now want to calculate our fixed factor, not the focus factor, but the fixed factor. So what is our available capacity if we need to deduct the Scrum event time and also the other meeting times? Remember the Scrum event time, all the hours when we calculated it, it was 9.25. And then for other meetings, you're looking at 4. So what you're going to do is, this is the sprint hour for everybody. Now, remember, because of the holidays, different holidays that they've taken off, because of the bank holidays that is there, this is the hours that you're looking for each person. So by the time you remove this 9.25 and 4 for John's available capacity would be 58 hours, 58.75 hours. James will be 42.75, and then you can see going all the way down. So when you're looking at the total again, it's dropped from, I think we were let me go and say 300 and something before. Just want to quickly see what our total was. Okay, sorry, it was 432 after we removed all the holidays. But if we factor in the Scrum event time hours, the hours for Scrum event time and other meetings, if we factor that in, it's dropped to 339.25 hours for the whole term. Now, to calculate your fixed factor, I've put if I can call it a formula here, and that is your available capacity, which is the numbers we have here. To get it, you need to deduct your Scrum event and other meetings from the sprint time for everyone, sprint hours for each of them, okay, which is different because of the holiday that has been factored in. And when you do that, this is what you come up with. So from the 432, you can see that we've come down to 339.25 hours for the whole team. Okay, so we're going to go further. And this time around, we want to calculate the focus factor. So for you to calculate the focus factor, what you would have is for each person, this is their sprint. Remember, these numbers you have here, the values you have here is after their holidays has been deducted and the bank holidays has been deducted, is what you have here. And then you have the Scrum event here, you have the other meetings here. And you know that when we deduct these two from this one is where we came to get the available capacity. That's what brought us to the available capacity, which is just from what the previous slide we're looking at. Now, how do we come about this focus factor, this 74% that we have here? So to calculate your focus factor, you have the formula here. So is the team standard available capacity. So if there were no holiday, nothing like that and everything and all that, what you're looking at is they would have been 80, isn't it? It should have been 80. Their available capacity would have been 80. But because of the bank holiday, which is nobody's fault, is the government giving them and everything and all that, you will look at that. And two people are the ones there are two team members that were there fully apart from the bank holiday, and that's John and Gerard, remember. So their own 72 that they have here is because it's affected by the bank. If there were no bank holiday, they didn't take any time off, remember, they would have had an 80 here and would have just deducted the Scrum event and other meetings to have the available capacity. So we're going to use this no, we're not really using this because what we're just doing is to say that it's just the bank holiday affecting, things for them. And the bank holiday, you need to factor it in. So you have a 58.75 here, which approximately is 59. So you're going to say that 59, the formula is that 59 divided by 80, which is the standard time if there had not been any bank holiday, times 100. So because for you to get a percentage, you need to multiply by 100. And what you will get is a 73.75%, which approximately is 74. Just round it up, you get 74. Now, that is the formula for the real capacity. But before we come to the real capacity, let's go to our focus factor. So the focus factor is the standard available capacity divided by the team's standard hours times 100. So you're using the available capacity, to divide the standard time. The standard hours is 80, isn't it? And then multiply by the 100. So let's assume that there was no bank holiday. The available capacity would have been 80 here, isn't it? 80 here minus this 9.25 and 4 would have given them the available capacity. I'll show you a chart where there were no bank holiday so that you can see the difference of what we're saying, okay? So, but for this case, because there was a bank holiday here, you have 5.75. Okay, we're not looking at John's zone. We're just picking because he's the one that didn't take any full individual holiday or partial individual holiday, himself and Gerard. And that's why we're just picking on that. Okay. So we have 59 approximately divided by 80 times 100, and the focus factor is 74%. It's 73.75, but approximately 74%. That's why you have, and you're going to use that for everybody, even for the ones that have gone on that has booked holiday. So you won't be having different focus factors. So the focus factor would be the same for everybody because it's standard. Now, for you to get your real capacity for the sprint, okay, so this is the focus factor, and then for you to get the real capacity that this team has for this sprint is not the available capacity because the focus factor has not been used. Remember, so to get their real capacity that they have for the sprint, you're going to say your available capacity, which is this one, multiplied by your focus factor. And when you do that multiplication, what you get is this. Won't be the same. So the focus factor is the same, but by the time you do that multiplication, because they all have different hours based on the holiday that has been taken, what you have is this. So for John would be 4.3, which is roughly 44 hours for the sprint. James would be roughly 32 hours for the sprint. Mary will be roughly 38 hours for the sprint. These are now their real capacity for the sprint. And you can see we're coming from 520 and now we're getting to 251.01. So this is their total hours for the sprint, and this is their total hours per day. Okay, for real capacity. All right, so like I said, I'm going to show us another chart where no holiday, there was no bank holiday, nobody took any holiday off, and that is what you have here. So here you have the normal 8 hours times 10 days, you have the normal 80, 80, 80, and then you have 40 for Agatha, which gave us the 520. And all we're deducting now to get our available capacity is the Scrum event time, okay, and then other meetings. Let's assume that there's still the other meetings there. So we're deducting this 13.25 from this 80, 80, 80, and the 40. All right. And then what we're coming up to is this is their available capacity now. And you can see the focus factor going up because nobody has taken, there was no bank holiday. Let me put it that way. There was no main holiday. So the focus factor will go up, will be 50, will be 84. And then if you use that, their real capacity would be 358.89. That's if there was no bank holiday, nobody took time off and all that. They still have a reduced time. It won't be 520. So we won't say, oh, the total hours they have to work is 520, because you need to factor some things in, which is going to affect that. And it's going to drop the hours that they needed to work. So it would be 358.89 hours, which we can just say 359 hours. And then per day, for the whole team, remember, not just for one person, for the whole team, you'll have 35. So for per person, you have a 5.6. So you can say invariably, everybody has 6 hours focus, or everybody has 6 hours real time out of their 8 hours per day to work. And per sprint, it will be roughly 56 hours for each person. Okay, and that's how you can use that to calculate your team. So at the end of the day, this team without holiday or anything would end up having 359, like I said, hours per sprint, and then just 36 hours per day. But for each person, definitely it will be maybe roughly approximately 6 hours, 6 hours, 6 hours focus time, 6 hours productive hours that they're going to, be working. And for Agatha, you can see it's quite small. She just has 2 hours to spend with this team. And that's why I say at times it will be, oh, I'm just doing the morning, or I'm doing half of the morning, or I'm just doing the afternoon with your team and everything when we look at it. So this is how you calculate your team's capacity. Now, if you've been doing this for a while, one of the benefits we saw later on is that you know a pattern. You know that John is a workaholic. He doesn't take time off. He's always at work and everything. And then you can look at Mary and you know that, okay, when summer comes, Mary takes time off during summer, because she has the kids to take care of, things like that and everything. Oh, Gerard comes from Australia, so summertime he goes home to see his people and everything. And that happens all the time. So you'll have kind of a pattern in place. So if Gerard is a senior developer, let's say if he's a senior developer that we need and all that, and that capacity has been in place, a product owner might be looking at the situation where, oh, we need this thing, the timeline for this thing is maybe August. Gerard is the one that has the domain knowledge to be able to do this. Do we want to do it earlier before he goes on holiday? Because we know that come summer he goes on holiday and we don't want that time to meet the timeline. So he can actually work on it and finish it before he goes on holiday. These are the kind of things that your capacity could help the team, to plan ahead of, to plan things properly. And it could even be a thing that maybe the product owner doesn't know, but it's something because you know the team's pattern, and by the time you're talking, we know that, okay, there's a feature that they want to work on. It has to do with payment. Like I said, Gerard is traveling to Australia. He's the one that knows that bit properly. He has kind of domain knowledge, expertise in that area and all that. You want him to do that payment gateway feature before he goes, even though it's done, is released, is not released to the client because they need it by August, but it's been released to either the pre-prod environment, whereby the team lead or the tech lead or thereabout is able to release it. But everything has been tested, everything is right, everything is ready. The only thing they're waiting for to do is just to release that feature, and that thing is ready and is done. So again, having said that, it's not as if each team member, because what you have in an agile team is a cross-functional team. So anybody could be able to work on that. But like I said, if the skill to do that really is with Jared and all that, you also want to use your capacity to plan things properly, to ensure that things are properly planned and there is no delay or bottleneck, when things are needed or things need to be done. It might even be the architecture of the system that he's putting in place for payments and not actually building and all that, but he has done the groundwork so that when work needs to be done, it's easier for it to get done. That is why your capacity planning, or one of the ways that your capacity planning can benefit the team um going forward. So where is your capacity located in your Azure DevOps board? So when you go on your sprint, it's located after you have your task backlog, but you have your backlog, and then you have the capacity. So which I think while we were doing the Azure DevOps setup, I think I've shown us. So you have it on your project board, is on your project board, is on the sprint page, and then you have under the capacity, you click on the capacity, and then you're able to put people's capacity here. So if you're looking at Abimbola and you're asking, oh, Abimbola, what is your capacity per day? If you look at the chart, you don't even need to ask them, because you have that capacity that you've planned out and everything. You're just able to put it there. Oh, per day, we said it's 5.6. You can just approximately put 6 there. So you can put 6 for, kind of everyone. But that 6 you've put for everyone, because you're going to put in their days of here, Azure DevOps is going to work out all those things you did on the spreadsheet. Azure DevOps is going to work it out for you here by itself. To say, okay, it's 6, but this person is taking 1.5 days off. This person is taking da 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 da, and everything and all that, and then it will work out what it is for you. But remember, because you've done the spreadsheet one, you've removed the Scrum events, which Azure DevOps won't do for you. You've removed the other meetings, which again Azure DevOps won't do for you. I know that, and I said the other meetings are varying factor, so it's not something that happens every sprint. It's not like the fixed meeting. So in a situation in a sprint where there are no meetings, then that means they are available, their capacity per day would increase. Yeah, but you've factored in the times they are off here. This team day off is the one that calculates the bank holiday. So when you put any days here, it applies it to the whole team. You can see it says this there. These days of applies to the whole team. That's the bank holiday one, and that's the one that applies to the whole team. And Azure DevOps is able to calculate that and then tells you what the team's capacity is. Okay, so that's where it's located on your project board. Okay, so this is just a recap for us. This is just kind of putting it in summary and in steps. So the first step you need is to know your sprint duration. The second step is to know the list of your team members and their roles. The third step you want to know is the allocation in percent. Is it full allocation, 100% allocation, 40, 30, 50 in when you talk about the borrowed resource. So I put that borrowed resource in so that you know that borrowed resource also affecting. So you might not have a borrowed resource, you might have full team where everybody's 100 and all that. But like I said, I just put that in so that I can use that also to explain things to us, that it does affect your capacity planning when you have a borrowed resource. And then the fourth step is for you to know the standard working hours, which is per day or per sprint. Your fifth step is to factor in the varying factors. The varying ones are the holidays that they have and everything. So the holidays are the varying ones, and then you have the fixed one. So the fixed one, the other meetings are part of the varying one. So because it doesn't happen, like I said, every time. So really the fixed ones are just the Scrum event meetings, at the fixed one. And then the seventh step is for you to calculate your focus factor and then the real capacity for your sprint. Okay, so And this is just to show us also the formula. Like I said, your sprint hours is just your standard hour that you've been employed, multiplied by the sprint duration in days. So if it's 10 days, your standard hours is 8 hours times, the sprint duration, which is 10 days. That would give you what your sprint hours is. And then your available capacity will be your sprint hours minus those events, those Scrum events and other meetings will give you available capacity. And then your focus factor is the team standard available capacity, which you have worked out at the top, divided by your standard hours multiplied by 100. And then your real capacity now would be the team member. Remember, the focus factor is using the team standard available capacity, while your real capacity is looking at the team member available capacity, okay? And then using that, multiplying that with the focus factor to get the real capacity for each team, and then for the whole team also in hours. Okay, so that's all done. Any question, anyone? Let me check. Let me stop sharing and then check the chat. Okay, there's no question in the chat. Please tell me that I've not lost you in any way. Any question, anyone?
Quick one. This is Osarime. I just want to find that we don't need to do the calculations. Azure board will do it for us, right?
No, you have to do the first calculation. Okay, so what the first calculation is doing. So where you have capacity per day. If you don't do the calculation, you won't get what the capacity per day is.
Okay.
Yeah. So you need that. You need to put that in. If you don't do the calculation, you won't be able to get that.
Okay.
And you need it, yeah.
All right. In
So
a
I just
case where
expect you to put that in, and then it can just work out. If I take holiday out for this person, you're going to put the same number for all the developers. That what if it is it is 6 and all that. Remember okay, let me quickly share the. I want to show you
yeah, I think
something.
that would be great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay. So come on now. I'm gonna go back to this one where we didn't remove any here. Okay, so looking at this now, remember we didn't deduct anything, no bank holiday, no holiday, and all that, and that gives you 5.6. And that was the one I said you can now decide that if nobody takes any holiday and all that, it will be roughly approximately 6 days, isn't it? Per day, 6 hours, sorry, 6 hours per day. So you can just put your 6 hours per day coming in here for your developers and your testers, because if nobody takes any holiday, it will be their capacity per day is 6 hours. Now, if they now take holiday off, all the other workings I've done for you, the first thing is for you to know, if nobody takes any holiday off, if there's no bank holiday and all that, what will the real capacity be per day, the singular one? And then like I said, is like we said, it's 5.6. But if you just say approximately 6 hours, you put that 6 here, and then you now start putting the holiday day offs and everything. You put that there, bank holiday, you put it here. That's when Azure DevOps will work it for you. So rather than do the Excel, so initially you need to know the capacity per day if nobody takes the holiday off. And for you to be able to do that, you need that chart that we're doing. But once you can get that and you fix that in here, just put the Abimbola is off 2 days. Boluwatife is off 5 days. This one is off 10 days. Put it here, and then Azure DevOps will work out all the long journey, the Israelite journey that I did. Azure DevOps will work that out. But like I said, for you to come to that, you need to be able to know what the capacity per day is. And then you now put the holiday in. So while I did it from scratch for us here, is for us to have an understanding of how you can work out your team's holiday. And then have an understanding also if You now know what the capacity per day is, and you put that here, and Azure DevOps works it out for you. And somebody is asking you, "Oh, what's going on? You have this number of people. Why is it telling you this?" You won't say, "Oh, I don't know. It's Azure DevOps that just work it up." Because you're able to use an Excel document to work it out, you'll be able to tell that person that, "Oh, it's factored in, da 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 da. That is why it is reduced to this." Because you can do it also on a spreadsheet. Okay. So you're not relying on Azure. So the whole process I've shown us is just for us to have an understanding, a basic understanding, and be able to explain to anybody that queries your team's total hours and all that, to say, well, but everybody is working so and everything. If you leave Azure DevOps to do everything, Azure DevOps won't tell you, "Oh, my working is because I have deducted this and this and this and this." Or if you use an Excel document to do it for the first time yourself before putting it in, like I said, maybe the PO is looking at, "Oh, but there are 10 people working and it's 10 days and everything, so that should be 100 or something like that and everything, or there about 100 hours or so why has it reduced to 72 and all that?" You'll be able to say, "Oh, you didn't factor in maybe that bank holiday hours, you didn't factor in this person's holiday, this person's holiday, and all that." That's why I've taken us using a basic spreadsheet to explain how those factors affect your team's capacity. I hope
Great,
I'm clear.
that's clear. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And the second question is, when you've got like a shortage of resource, like no
Mm.
QA, and you only have like one developer instead of three, is that applicable as well?
Yeah, you can borrow resource, number one. Um, where you will have a challenge is if in the organization or the other project teams that you have, nobody has worked on your system. Because the time it will take you to get a borrowed resource and you're explaining to that person, because that person has to have a shared understanding, shared knowledge of what your team is working on and things like that, going on the environment, trying to do what they need to do. The person that has gone on holiday is back, isn't it? So most times when you borrow resource, it could be somebody that has worked in your team before, has now been moved to do something else in another project. So they have that basic knowledge of what your project is all about initially. So you can borrow them to come back and do one or two things. What happens most times if you don't have that kind of a person is in a situation where you tell the okay, so that's where you come in as an APM, the project manager. You're the one that manages the budget. And the scrum master is coming to you to say that okay, so this person create that is not this. I'm just using this as a scenario. Oh, so person, has an accident, it's in the hospital, so we're losing a resource and it's affecting, our productivity and all that and everything. We would need a resource and all that. You find some job descriptions out there where they ask for 9 months. Maybe to cover maternity, somebody has gone to give birth. You can't tell them to. They are on maternity leave. You can't tell them to come. Now the people are even going on paternity leave. For maybe 4 months and all that. The notice they've given you is enough time for you to quickly get somebody that would come in. They will onboard the person as much as possible before they have to go off to do what they need to do. In most organizations now, also you're having a situation where they're getting people who are working on um having domain knowledge to come in and be technical person. Okay, so they make it open to them. They kind of that cross-functional example is if you have somebody working in the benefits department and all that, and that person is interested in becoming a developer or things like that, they bring that person to the team. That person keeps working, doing pair programming, okay, with one of the senior developers and all that. And what that is doing is they're helping them to learn how to code. They send them on trainings also and all that. They come back, they help them to grow and all that. That kind of person have a domain knowledge already. They're working, they're doing the benefits already. So they know about all the calculations and all that. They are just coming to do the technical aspect of things. So you can have that also. So it's not all the time that you might get a borrowed resource from another team. It might be the company actually sourcing for another person to come in, a cover. That's the situations where you have temporary staff. They're saying, oh, there's this job open for 9 months. There's this job open for, 8 months, 10 months, or thereabout, and all that. It's just so they're covering. So that kind of person is coming in. They're not, if it's coming from outside, if they get that person from an agency, kind of recruiters or agencies or things like that, and they're coming in, they're just coming to cover for like I said, 1 month, 1 year tops at times. So they definitely get onboarded and everything. They make sure that the kind of person they get, those are the kind of job descriptions where they said it's compulsory for you to have knowledge of maybe banking, knowledge of finance, knowledge of because they want you to have that basic background before you come in and start working and everything. And when they are doing an interview for that person, that's where they are grilling them on. That you have to have and another person who doesn't have that aspect might not be picked at the interview, even if they are good. And why they did that mostly is because they want somebody to hit the ground running. They want somebody that has that knowledge of what needs to be built and all that. You're just coming in and picking up the work to do. Is most times because they are covering for somebody who has gone on holiday, somebody who has gone on maternity and all that. So it's not all the time that you might get somebody from the organization who is able to cover. You might need to get an external person to come in to do that cover for that time.
Thank you so much. And my last question is, so it's very necessary to also have the Excel spreadsheet calculations as well, just in case any questions arise and all of
Yes.
those.
Yes. So I'll by now because I know my teams, like I said, I said earlier on, one of the benefits is that it helps you to know the pattern of your team members and everything and all that. And as time goes on, it gets to a stage where you're able to know their capacity per day, even when they're on holiday. Like I said, if there's no holiday, there's nothing, we know it's 6. So we know that if we're full capacity per day for everybody is 6. And when the holiday comes in is when you just fix it in. But I use the Excel, and that's why every time I need to take this session, I can take it without going through all the long processes of the Excel. I can just come and tell you that, oh, just know what your team capacity is, and then but you won't understand, you won't have a deep understanding. So taking you through the spreadsheet is just helping you to have a better understanding so that you can defend yourself, like you said.
Okay, and the final question is, sorry, the final
You
question
put me on a hot seat.
is
That's why.
is there like a board meeting that we normally go to in Scrum? No board
Board
meeting?
meeting
Yeah,
for a Scrum Master.
yeah. Or
Mm,
APM.
APM, yes. Scrum Masters, I don't think so. Depending on the organization, let me put it that way. If you have a big organization, where you have an APM and a Scrum Master, the Scrum Master might not get to the to have a meeting with the key stakeholders. Let me put it that way. I won't say
Mhm.
board meeting, but I'll say key stakeholders. Okay, so they might not have to have a meeting with the CEO or the senior management people. No, but the key stakeholders could be the project sponsor is a key stakeholder, yeah, and then
Mhm.
some other stakeholders and everything, maybe the digital services team, their heads and everything. And why the Scrum Masters, like I said, if it's an organization where they don't have an APM, they will have a project manager. So a project manager is also a key stakeholder because it's the one managing us, managing the resources, managing the budget for that. So you can have a project manager and also a Scrum Master. So that could happen in a situation where you have a company that is doing Agile, which is a combination of waterfall and agile, or they are transitioning from waterfall to agile. So you will have both of them there. But what most organizations are doing now is rather than me having project manager and a scrum master, they are combining that role together so that they are paying one person and they are calling that person now agile project manager, which is APM.
Oh, okay, cool. Because obviously from my background, we do have like project board meeting, program board meeting, portfolio meeting, and all of those
Yeah,
stuff. So
you're
I
you're
thought that it
going to
would
the
be the
enterprise
same.
one now. Yes. Yeah. So
Okay.
when you're talking
Oh,
about safe, you can have that in place. Those are the ones that do the program one. So you're looking at a project that is very big and it's taking more than one team, to complete it because it has different components. So you would have that kind of that kind of a meeting where the key people from different teams come together as a steering committee, to have a meeting and everything and all that. But that's on another level. That would be a one team project um process, so to say.
Thank you. That's everything for me. Thank you.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Yeah.
All right,
So
anybody else?
yeah. How do we convert effort to capacity?
Okay, so let me stop sharing. So that was when I was talking about your velocity and marrying your velocity, because most times people use their efforts to calculate their velocity. The velocity will be set with the story point at times. So your velocity is looking at your story point. So your velocity is looking at a situation where, so the first velocity that you have, they've estimated their stories and all that. The first velocity for after your first sprint, your velocity will tell you what your story point for that um end of that sprint one is. So after finishing what you need to do, it could tell you your velocity is maybe 20 story points. That is what you've completed during that sprint. So it will tell you, oh, for this team, their velocity is 20 story points, because that's the first one, isn't it? And then you do the second one, you do the third one, and then your velocity either increases or decreases. When it increases, that means you're performing well. When it decreases, the team needs to reflect and wonder what they're doing, because you can't start from 20 and then you're dropping to maybe 10, 13 and all that. That means you're not performing well. Okay, so your velocity is just calculating your pace, is looking at the pace for the team. So your pace increases as you go along. And what makes your pace to increase as you go along? Number one is experience. Number two is now you are having more knowledge of what you're working on. So you should be working better when you know what you're working on. It shouldn't be decreasing. Okay, so but where your velocity and your capacity, like I said, comes in, I explained earlier on, in a situation where we have at the end of a particular sprint is telling us, oh, your average velocity for this sprint, your average velocity going forward is at the end of a particular sprint is maybe 50. And then you're looking at what team capacity did that 50. And it's everybody. Everybody was available to do that. And then
Hmm.
the next sprint also, you had it went to maybe 50, 55. That means you're getting better. Like I said, your velocity increases, the more you get better, the more you gain more knowledge, the more you get better in what you're doing, you're developing, you're getting more knowledge of the domain that you're working on and all that. Your velocity is meant to increase. Once in a while it drops depending on complexity, but it shouldn't drop too bad. And then when you now don't have the full capacity, let's say you have three-quarter capacity, when you finish a sprint where you have three-quarter capacity, your velocity is going to drop because you don't have the full team capacity, but you don't let it affect you because you know the reason why it dropped was because everybody, wasn't there and all that. But by the time, like most organizations, during the Christmas period, their velocity drops because that's the time when people take time off, isn't it? During summer period, their velocity dropped and all that. But the team is able to understand that, okay, the velocity dropped because of this reason, because we don't have the full capacity to do what we normally do. And business understand, because there are times also, like Sarame said, 8 p.m. you're calling to a meeting and say that, oh, what happened? Business picks that up a lot. What happened? You people were, completing last sprint, you completed, so story point and everything we've given on to you now is based on that. Why is it dropping and all that? But because she knows that it wasn't at full capacity, she's able to say that, oh, sorry, that happened because, a lot of people took holiday. You can't stop people from taking holiday. They need to take it. It's part of the organization's rules and regulations that you give people time off and all that and everything. And then you're able to tell them that, oh, things dropped because of that and everything. I would say even before it gets to the stage where the key stakeholders are querying, saying that, oh, why didn't you do this much and everything, before you even commit to that work, because that is where commitment, that is what sprint planning is all about. Are we able to commit to it as a team? And you as a scrum master, you're not just leaving the product owner to the team. Most times developers and QAs don't want to talk where the product owner is, because the product owner is like a key stakeholder. Okay, they are high, so they don't want to talk. And that's why you have to be objective as a scrum master or an APM. You're shielding the team. They don't want to talk. They know the right thing, but they're keeping quiet. This is a senior person in the organization. I don't want to talk and everything and all that. That's when you come in, but you have to be objective. Like I said, you have to be diplomatic and you have to be objective to say, oh, this is the capacity that we have. There is no way we will be able to complete what you're bringing. Oh, but you completed it last sprint. Last sprint, we had full capacity. However, this sprint, a lot of people have taken time off and all that. And based on that, is it possible out of the 10 stories you're beginning for us to work on, for us to be able to just do maybe 6 prioritized one? And when the product owner leaves that meeting, the product owner is having a meeting with the key stakeholders to say, okay, this is what I told you will be what we will get at the end of the sprint. But that is not going to happen because people have taken time off. So we're just focusing on these 6 for now. If we finish that and there is still capacity to draw another. So the key stakeholders are already aware that everything might not be coming at the end of the sprint because that negotiation has been done. But as a scrum master, if you don't shield them to say that, if at the end of the sprint they're not able to do everything and they get query, really it looks bad on you because you understand the process. You should have put them through, guide and support them through. And that is you shielding the team. That's part of what shielding is all about. Because if you don't reduce that workload, they go in, they are overworked, they work under pressure and all that. You won't get quality because they want to do everything and then they make mistakes. So that's how your capacity work with your effort. So your velocity, if it's tracking story points, your story points are your effort.
Mhm.
Is that clear, John?
Yeah, thank you.
Any other question from anyone?
Sorry, this might be a little
That's
digression.
fine.
There is something I stumbled on whilst checking some job applications today, and it's called DAD, DAD, Agile Dad or something.
Agile dad.
Yeah.
I never heard that one before now.
This disciplined agile. Okay. Yeah,
What's
it's
the full meaning for the acronym?
yeah, I've forgotten now. I wrote it down. Yeah, it's disciplined agile um something like that. Yeah, because it was one of the sorry?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was like one of the it is one of it is like safe. They called it
Ah,
safe. It's something like safe. Yeah, it was one of the job they said you have to be familiar with dad, agile dad. I was like, I've never had that before. I'm just,
I haven't also. But one thing I know is a lot of people are, I don't want to use the word mixing things that suit organizations now for them to work on. I don't think I've heard that. I will research into that. Maybe any other meeting we have
okay.
um after, and I'll be able to maybe um look more into it if it's something that I've come across with any of the I've not even, to be honest with you, I've not come across that with any of the team I've been working with. But what I could say is there are times when in an organization, when if especially if you have an organization that is doing moving from waterfall to agile, there is a resistance you come across. And
Mm-hmm.
because of those resistance, at times you have organizations or you have the agile coach working in that organization agreeing with key senior management to say, okay, there are some words that are biting people in their ears, and because of that, they are resisting this agile thing and all that. Let's stop using words like this and like this and like this, at least until they warm up to what we're doing. Do you understand? And then they're
Mm-hmm.
able to work with it. That happens in my organization. They don't even want to hear, they don't want to hear the word sprint. And then what are you sprinting? So you call it iteration, they're good with it. And then you find another team in the same organization, they don't mind using sprints because maybe half of the people that are there are used to agile where they're coming from. And then they don't want to hear anything like um actually they don't want to hear the normal agile thing and all that. So what we've done was to be able to coin out an agile process for the organization. So it's not the normal agile you have. What we have is something that suits the team, something that suits the organization, because most of their teams, they do Kanban. So like I said, they don't want to hear a sprint. So one team will tell you that, oh, what is our working period? They prefer to call it working period. So we'll have WP1, WP2, that's working period 1, which is still the 2 hours. 2 weeks, but they just don't want to call, they don't want to hear sprint and all that.
Okay.
But after a while that they are working with that process and they get used to it, before they know it, I'm dropping the word sprint, and half of them are already using the word sprint unconsciously without knowing. But when we brought it initially, they were fighting it. But later on, they realized, okay, this thing is good and all that. And before you know it, so that one also, let me have a look. I'll
Yeah.
look into it, and then I can talk to one or two people to say that, have you worked with this before and everything and all that, and then I can come back and give you.
Yeah, sorry,
Message.
it's called Scrum Dad. It refers to disciplined agile delivery, DAD, a hybrid enterprise.
Disciplined agile delivery. So
Yeah,
it's just saying that they want or delivery centric kind person.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's like
that's they
by
just
software
like, like
development
I
for
said it, that they're just coining it in different words. So another organization will say, we want you to be delivery focused. So they
okay,
want you to come
okay.
in and even though you're doing agile and everything, you have to be focused on. They don't want you to be too focused on process. They
Okay.
want to see delivery. They want to see value being added, productivity being added, and it's more. If is it a scrum master role or a delivery manager role?
No, it's not a role. It is just it is like a methodology to address the
Sorry,
full
it's a what?
yeah, it's a methodology um that address the full delivery life cycle, including aspects of often overlooked by Scrum.
Mm, yeah, because like I said, it's just they want you to be, when you are delivery focused,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
you
yeah.
do beyond the scrum master role.
Mm,
That's what they're looking at. You not focusing on just process, but combining both process and delivery to be able to achieve things.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
that's what they're looking at. They want you to combine, and then that in such a situation, you're looking at, is there a plan in place? Do you have a release plan in place and all that? That would be something they're looking for an APM. But like I said, you see, in the workforce out there now, they are combining roles. And because they are
Mm,
combining roles, that's where they are coining out all these thing. They don't want to pay two people if they can pay one person to do both job, and that's why they are coining out all these words.
mm. All right, thanks for the
You're
insight.
welcome.
Yeah, that's all. And
Right, any other person?
let me know when you want recording.
Yeah, maybe we'll stop the recording so that we don't get it too long.
Okay, should I
The
stop
questions
now?
are good, so yeah, please stop it
All right.
so that